Hello my bookworms, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sydney. In today's video we will be going over some super specific book recommendations submitted to me from you. So hey, what's up? How are you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. Over on Instagram, Avi and I put up a question box and we were wanting to give you guys some specific book recommendations. This is the first time I'm doing this and I'm really excited. I have 21, I think, questions that I have chosen and I have figured out what I think is a good recommendation for you. Am I really far away? I feel like I'm really far away. How about this? Is this too close? This is fine. Yeah? Yeah. Okay, so let's just jump right on into it. The first question I got was a book that you can read in one sitting. Come here. Good girl. I have 4 different options for you guys. The first one is any book within this series. With this series, there's no chronological order, so you can read any book at any point. They're all super short and you can definitely get through them in one sitting. They are the Wayward Children's series. This one is my favorite. It is Down Among the Sticks and Bones. This is book number 2. They are just like a whimsical, dark fantasy in which we are following a child or a set of children who find these doorways to their perfect world. And somehow they sometimes get kicked out of their perfect world and end up back in the real world, and they're left to grapple with that reality of not being able to be in their perfect world anymore. And in some of the books, you follow them at Eleanor West's home for wayward children, or we follow them within their perfect worlds, like with this one, and we're seeing why these worlds are perfect for these kids. And sometimes they're super brutal, sometimes they're very whimsical. There's definitely one book in the series that is right for everyone. The next one is kind of almost like a little bit highbrow-ish. I really loved it. It's definitely gotten some mixed reviews, but it is sci-fi. It is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amel El Motar and Malx Gladstone. This one I feel like has to be read in one sitting, otherwise it won't really make sense. My advice with this one is that try to get the audiobook alongside reading it with your eyeballs, just to like maybe enhance the comprehension that's going on or trying to go on. But again, it's super short. It's a little bit like out there, a little bit open-ended of you maybe having to put some of the pieces together yourself, but I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was absolutely stunning. And it's basically like a sci-fi sapphic time travel fantasy between their 2 characters, Red and Blue, who are on opposite sides of this time war, and they're somehow like being able to communicate, and it's like letters between the 2 of them, and they're both trying to win this time war, but they're in love, and you know, things happen, and it's really sweet, it's really good, it's really tragic. I think it's beautiful. The next one I will say is Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This is another one that I read in one sitting, and another one where the audiobook is superior, because in this world we are in Catherine House, which is like a prestigious, hard to get into school where the children have to like leave everything from the outside world behind, and then they are within Catherine House for I think 2 years or so. But it definitely has some sort of like culty mentality. There's a lot of chanting going on, which is really cool for the audiobook because it really gets you into that like cult hive mind mentality. And there's just some sinister things going on in Catherine House, and I had a fantastic time reading it. Not everyone does. It has mixed reviews, but again, if you are into like kind of weird atmospheric things, Catherine House might be for you. The very last one, I wanted to throw a thriller in here because I thought that this thriller was super fast paced. I thought it was super interesting, very good for her type mentality, and it is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I felt like the plot twists in this were extremely well placed and definitely made me want to read it in one sitting. This is basically about our main character who is a college professor, and she has been like finding men who have sexually abused other females and basically killing them. And obviously it's a thriller with a lot of twists. Things go wrong, things go right, new players enter the game, and it's really good. You could definitely read it in one sitting. The next recommendation was for a winter isolated vibe, and then another one, which I'm using the same book for, was Isolated or Forced Proximity. And this one is another thriller that I really loved, and it was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. In thrillers, the last major twist of the book can really make or break the story, but in this book, I was so invested the entire entire time throughout the story. So by the time we got to the final twist, it was just like the cherry on top of it being pretty cool. The story itself, we have a married couple who the man has face blindness, so he doesn't recognize anyone's face ever. If he were to walk into a restaurant, he would not be able to know which person he's supposed to sit with, like who his wife is. And them as a couple are going on this like last ditch effort kind of vacation to try to save their marriage at this like old chapel in the middle of nowhere. It is snowing, it is cold, it is forced proximity because there's nothing around, and it's spooky. It's spooky and a lot of stuff happens. There's like some ulterior motives that they both have to go on this vacation, and it's phenomenal. The next recommendation was a book that feels like a mug of hot cocoa on a cold, snowy day. I feel like there is really only one logical answer to this question for me, and it is the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. Not only are there like scenes within the graphic novels of Nick and Charlie in like a cold, snowy type situation, but it's just the feeling that I get while reading these books are warm and fuzzy, like a big cup of hot cocoa with a bunch of marshmallows on top, and that's just what I'm consuming while I'm reading these books. That's the feeling. They're so sweet, so wholesome, but also touch on some really serious topics. So I 100% recommend this graphic novel series if you haven't already heard about it. And it is also being adapted into a Netflix series, and I can't even talk about it because I'm so excited. This next one, it said, please pick me. So I'm picking you. Hello. They said the same vibe as Numb Little Bug by M. Behold. I've never heard of this song, so I went and listened to it, and I promise you, I really listened to it. From the lyrics as well as literally just the opening scene. I want to tell you that the first 5 seconds of this music video that I watched of this song, I knew what my answer was, and then I listened to the lyrics and it confirmed it. And my recommendation for you is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The opening scene of like the gritty, like staticky music while the girl was driving in the car made me think of our main character here, as well as the lyrics. The lyrics were like, you gotta do what you have to do to survive, like no matter if you're sad but you don't want to die because you gotta survive. I feel like those lyrics, as well as some others that I can't remember right now off the top of my head because I just listened to it for the first time ever, but that as well as like the atmosphere of those first 5 seconds of the music video made me think of the main character Nina in this story, because she is a very strong female character that literally gave up so much in order to raise her siblings, and she just did what she had to do to survive with her family. Plus this is set in 1983, so the staticky like vibes in the beginning of the music video, it just like added the cherry on top to why I thought of this book. But it's phenomenal. Taylor Jenkins Reid is a mastermind at writing characters. I think that every single one, even her side characters, are just stunning. So well thought out, very interesting in and of all of themselves. The next recommendation was main character is injured and then the enemy has to help them. This one I'm going to be recommending The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is a enemies to lovers romance in a workplace setting, and they're both kind of competing for this promotion. Even before this competition, they have just been at each other's throats, hating each other, hating each other's mannerisms, and there are definitely times in this book where one of them is hurt and the other one has to step up and help them. Another option for this one, it's a little bit different. It's main character is injured and the person that helps them isn't an enemy, but it's a stranger. And that book is This Close to Okay by Lisa Cross Smith. I love this cover so much. It's so beautiful. This one, our main character is a therapist who was driving home and found our other main character standing on the side of a bridge, basically thinking about committing suicide. She somehow gets him to agree to let her take him out for a coffee, and eventually he agrees to stay on her couch for the weekend so that he can get back on his feet. And this book is following that weekend. This book definitely has some heavier topics discussed, and at the time that I read it, I was a little bit emotional myself, so reading some of these things on the page were kind of healing for me. The next recommendation was a book that you threw across the room but picked it back up because you had to keep reading. The book that immediately came into my head was obviously Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. This book put me through the ringer. I wanted to throw it so many times because I was feeling so many emotions. There were plot twists in here that I just never saw coming. It's like my favorite book ever. So obviously I picked it back up and kept reading it because I had to see how it ended. I think another answer for this question might be Reaper at the Gates by Saba Tahir. This is book 3 in her Ember in the Ashes series. And this series for me, up until this book book 3 was good. Like, I had a good time reading them, but when it came to Reaper at the Gates, there was this plot twist towards like the back end of the book that I literally had trouble picking my jaw up off the ground. And because of that, I literally almost threw the book across the room because I like couldn't handle what was happening. But obviously I had to pick it back up and finish it. The next prompt that I got was, what is a book that makes you believe in humanity again? That's a tough one. But I do have an answer, and it is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. If you've been on my channel before, you've probably heard me mention this book. It is so freaking short, and it is so great. Rilke is a poet, and what's going on within this little bind up is there's a young man who is writing Rilke letters asking him for advice on life and advice on his poetry, and this little bind up are all of the collections of letters that Rilke sent back to the young man. So we don't get to know what the young man was asking, but we can kind of deduce by what we're reading from Rilke's responses, and there's just so many really good takeaways within these letters. I have a bunch of underlines, bunch of brackets, and I just know that I will reread this a lot of times in my life. The next recommendation was a lyrically written coming of age story. I have a couple answers for this one. I'm kind of a sucker for a coming of age story. I think they're kind of special. But my first one is one that I don't see much here on BookTube, and I think that it is definitely underhyped because I thought it was phenomenal, and it is The Last True Poets of the Sea by Julia Drake. I love this book so much. I will recommend this until the cows come home. In the story, our main character Violet has this great-great-grandmother who was on a shipwreck on the coast of Maine, and somehow she was the only survivor that made it back to the shore and then survived and was able to continue the lineage of her family. Now, Violet is kind of like a party girl hanging out with the wrong people, and her mom is sending her to stay with a family member out in Maine for the summer, and Violet gets a job at this like biological center or something like that, and she makes friends with the boy who works there as well as Liv, who is a fellow wreck hunter, which is like she is interested in shipwrecks, and so they're trying to find out about Violet's great-great-grandmother. This book just has really good mental health representation as well as bisexual representation, which I feel like I don't find much bisexual representation in books, especially a YA coming of age book, so I really loved that about this. Plus, it was just written beautifully. The next recommendation for this one is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno, but in this one, our main character Georgia is part of a long lineage of magical women, and all of the women will show signs of their power by their 18th birthday. However, Georgia is almost 18 and she still hasn't shown any signs of her magical ability, and she's going away to college in the next year. So this is the last summer that she is able to spend with her family before she gets off the small island that they live on and away from the family inn that they run. On this island, a lot of strange things happen, like really strange weather patterns. There's a magical crow, I believe, that comes around at the same time every year, and there's some like big festival for it as well. And there's something that goes on in the story that is kind of like a plot twist and a mystery. So we're following that mystery as well as following Georgia and her trying to figure out her sexuality and her magical ability. And it was really good. Very sweet. The last book I have for this recommendation of a lyrical coming of age is Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. This cover, so stunning. And in this one, our main character Mila is freshly graduated from college and she has aged out of the foster care system, and she's been offered this teaching job in this little like compound in Northern California, and she takes it immediately without really knowing any sort of thing that she's getting herself into. And it says the farm is a refuge, but it's also haunted by the past, and Mila's own memories are starting to rise to the surface. I think that this book does a really good job at being more like atmospheric and lyrically written and taking a really special look at grief in a new light, and I really appreciate this book for that reason. And I think that this could definitely fit this prompt and definitely help some people if they are struggling with growing up to be a certain age while also dealing with grief-stricken things that have happened in their past. Grief-stricken things? I'm not sure if that makes sense, but you know what I mean. The next recommendation I got a couple times, and it was a fantasy with the forbidden love trope. My first recommendation is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I love this book with my whole heart. Gave it 5 stars. This book made me happy, angry, cry, excited, on the edge of my seat, literally all of the above. And there is at one point a forbidden love going on. In the story, our main character is Zele, and she lives in the land of Orisha. The magic is gone because of the orders of their ruthless king. The Magi, which is the people who are able to wield magic like Zele and her mother, were targeted and killed, leaving Zele without her mother growing up and her people without hope. Now, Zele Zelle has one chance to bring magic back and strike against the monarchy. With the help of a rogue princess, Zelle must outwit and outrun the crown prince who is hellbent on eradicating magic for good. Danger lurks in Orisha, where snow leopards prowl and vengeful spirits wait in the waters. Yet the greatest threat may be Zelle herself as she struggles to control her powers and her growing feelings for an enemy. I told you it fits. With a fresh battery, let me tell you about the second recommendation I had for a fantasy book with a forbidden love. And that book is A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. In this story, we have two main characters. The first one is Malik, who is traveling to the Solstacia Festival, which he sees as a way to escape his war-stricken home and start a new life with his sisters. However, a vengeful spirit abducts his youngest sister, and in order to get his sister back, the price is to kill Karina, who is the crown princess of Zuran. And Karina is our other main character. Karina's mother is the Sultana, and she has been assassinated. And Karina's obviously devastated, and she has decided to use dark ancient magic to resurrect her from the dead. But in order to complete that ritual, she needs the beating heart of a king. And so she decides to offer her hand in marriage to the Solstacia winner so that she can get a king to kill him for his beating heart in order to get her mother back. So obviously they both have ulterior motives for each other, but they end up getting close, and it's dramatic, and it's really good. The next recommendation, it was something about like a traveling throughout Europe. And my recommendation for this one was a cute little romance book that I had no idea what to expect going in, and I ended up loving it so much. It is Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. I don't know, but I had a great time with it. This takes place in Italy, and our main character Lena is in Tuscany for the summer, getting to know her father, which was her mother's dying wish. And she is given a journal that her mother had kept when she lived in Italy. Suddenly, Lena's uncovering a magical world of secret romances, art, and hidden bakeries. A world that inspires her, along with the ever-so-charming Ren, to follow her in her mother's footsteps and unearth a secret that has been kept for far too long. It's a secret that will change everything Lena knew about her mother, her father, and even herself. And it was just really good. I had a fantastic time reading it, and I don't know, I think it fits this prompt. I think that you should read it. The next question for a recommendation was a book that will send a chill down your spine like a cold breeze. This was my favorite one. This is one of my favorite questions, I think. And my recommendation is Middle Game by Shannah Maguire. Oh, I just love it. I love it. In this story, we have two main characters, Roger and Dodger, who aren't exactly human. They were created by their creator, whose name is Reed, and he is like skilled in all of the alchemical arts. Reed created these two with ulterior motives for them to take him to the impossible city. Now, you'll have to read it to figure out what exactly that is, but there are just so many things within this book that just feel eerie. There are specific scenes that I remember shivering at, that I was like, oh, that's kind of messed up, or just like this overwhelming sense of like dread of something being wrong. And that's also just big ups to Shannah Maguire as a writer. I still, to this day, have not been able to find any other writer that makes me feel the way that her writing does. And oh, I just want to reread this again. You follow Roger and Dodger from when there are little kids up until like where they are now, and it's just awesome. It's really phenomenal, eerie, creepy, chill, spiny. So this is what I would recommend you. So this next one was a recommendation for a fiction that's character driven and it won't break your heart at the end. Oh. Like, I have a lot of really good fiction or like contemporary books that I've read, but a lot of them like might break your heart. But I really want to recommend this book to you because even though there are parts of this book that might make you pretty sad, the overarching themes of this book and how well it was written and how it ends. You won't end with a broken heart, I don't think. Oh, I don't think you will. But the book I want to recommend is Call It What You Want by Bridget Kemmerer. I had never heard of this author before I read this book, and it was recommended to me. I read it for it was the Nicole Made Me Do It vlog, and I still think about this book, and it's been like over a year. I just really think that it was written really, really well. It is for sure character driven, and there are two main characters that we are following. One of them is Rob, who basically lost everything when his dad was found embezzling funds within the community, and because of this, his dad had a failed suicide attempt. and now the dad that he knew is gone. And then our other main character is Megan, who is like the typical overachiever, and then her older sister comes home from college pregnant, and the pressure for Megan to uphold the family's perfect reputation is becoming too much for her to handle. And then these two characters are paired together on a calculus project, and they're both reluctant to let each other through the walls that they have built because they're both kind of the outcasts within the high school now. But when Megan learns Rob's plan to fix the damage caused by his father, it could ruin more than their fragile new friendship. And I just got chills because I am remembering how great this book was. I think more people should read it. I think you should read it. I hope you do. I hope you like it. The next recommendation was for a book that you gave 5 stars, but you don't talk about a lot. The first one I want to recommend is The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea by Maggie Takuta Hall. This book is beautiful. First of all, I love this cover, the face in the water down here, and all of these just designs. It's so stunning. And I'm pretty sure this was the first book that was ever part of my Patreon book club, so it also holds a special place in my heart for that reason. This book is a sweeping fantasy debut full of stolen memories, illicit mermaid blood, pirates, double agents, and haunting mythical creatures. It conjures an extraordinary cast of characters and the unforgettable story of a couple striving to stay together in the face of myriad forces wishing to control their identities and their destinies. This book is just phenomenal. It's beautiful. It is lyrically written, and I really love the representation in this book. There are a lot of good quotes. There was just a lot about it that brought a really good discussion within my book club that month. So I definitely think it is worth you picking up. Another book that I gave 5 stars that I don't talk about a lot on my channel is Dig by A.S. King. This one I read a long time ago. It was probably 2 years, and this book is very special. It's super weird because the main characters that we're following are the shoveler, the freak, Can I Help You, Loretta the Flea Circus Ring Mistress, and First Class Malcolm. These are 5 teenagers lost in the Hemmings family maze of tangled secrets. As the rot just beneath the surface of the Hemmings' respectability begins to spread, the estranged grandchildren gradually find their ways back to one another just in time to uncover the terrible cost of maintaining the family name. And it says, with her inimitable I have trouble with that word. With her inimitable surrealism, A.S. King explores how a toxic culture of polite, affluent white supremacy tears a family apart and how one determined generation has a shot at digging its way out. And this book is literally phenomenal. I don't talk about it enough, and I really should because it's so good. Another one that I'll mention is a memoir. I don't normally rate memoirs, but this one was just so well done that I feel like it has to be a 5-star read, and it's Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty. This is about Caitlin Doughty and her journey to becoming a mortician. And it obviously starts with her working at a crematory and everything that goes on within a crematory all the way to her becoming an actual mortician. And you can tell I read this a long time ago because I don't tab like this anymore. But this book is phenomenal. It's funny. It is insightful. It's educational because it talks about how different cultures view death and how it differs from America and just things like that. It's really, really well done. And the audiobook has Caitlin Doughty narrating it herself, so that's also a plus if you wanted to check it out. Another recommendation was a mindfuck sci-fi, and I don't read enough sci-fi.
Hi, hello, editing Sydney here. After I had filmed this video, probably like 2 days later or something, I realized that there is a sci-fi that I've read that is definitely mindfucky, and it is for sure Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. That book is absolutely phenomenal. It's about this place called Area X and the expeditioners who are being sent in to gather information and data on this area that is like closed off from the rest of the world. And in Annihilation, we're following, I think, the 11th expedition being sent in or something. But regardless, it's 5 women going in and they all have different like specialties, I guess, because there's like a psychologist, a surveyor, the de facto leader, and then our narrator who is the biologist. And the Annihilation book is kind of her like journal, like her findings. We're kind of in her stream of consciousness thoughts of what's going on and all of these absolutely crazy things happening in this Area X. And it's kind of trippy. It's definitely mindfucky and it is just so good. And it's pretty short, so that's kind of appealing to a lot of people as well. But yeah, that is actually like my official answer for this question because it's really good.
Okay, bye. My recommendation for something that I can attest to would be the Illuminae files. This is the second book. This is Gemina. And then the third book is Obsidio. I don't know where Illuminae is right now. but the first book is Illuminate, and it's absolutely phenomenal. I will recommend this series also until the cows come home. I think that the first book, I don't know if I would say that it's like mind-fucky, but it definitely is like space opera drama, and there are some plot twists that go on that like you are doing double takes because there is a lot going on and it's high stakes. But the other recommendation that I have, I went to Caleb for because he reads a little bit more sci-fi than I do, and his recommendation was The Three-Body Problem by, I want to say it's like Liu Shixin or something like that. Off the top of my head. He read it recently and he was obsessed with it. He said that it was really, really good. In his words exactly. It's not like a twist or big reveal type book, but the way that it fucks with your head is how terrifying and realistically the sci-fi stuff is handled. And an honorable mention from Caleb would be a Philip K. Dick book because he is one of the greats, is the recommendation that Caleb and I have for you. The next question is a realistic recommendation with a touch of magic. And I think that Summer of Salt would work here, as well as Dig by A.S. King, but also definitely The Inheritance of Arcadia Divina. Just read this last month and it is really, really great. Very family centered, and it definitely has, I think that I would describe it as like Encanto vibes mixed with like the Night Circus, in which Arcadia Divina is sending letters to her vast family, telling them to come collect their inheritance because she is dying. And when the family comes to her house to collect their inheritance, Arcadia Divina is growing into a tree, and everyone gets their seed that they're supposed to grow, and then they get their inheritance from it, their ability. And the whole story is like figuring out Arcadia Divina's past lives and coming to terms with her death now, but also it's just all about family, and it's just beautifully written, and obviously it has some magical realism going on. Another one that I will recommend is The 10,000 Doors of January. In it we have our main character January, who finds a strange book, a book that carries the scent of other worlds and tells the tale of secret doors, of love, adventure, and danger. Each page turn reveals impossible truths about the world, and January discovers its story increasingly intertwined with her own. It's beautiful and it's whimsical, and it has the magical elements of, you know, these doors being pathways into a new universe, or just different worlds, or just different places. The last one for this recommendation is Black Girl Unlimited. This one is a memoir that also has surrealistic elements going into it, and it is phenomenal. Made me sob, and Echo Brown is a magician in the book, and literally, she's phenomenal. And it says that Black Girl Unlimited fearlessly explores the intersections of poverty, sexual violence, depression, racism, and sexism, all through the arc of this transcendent coming-of-age memoir. This is one of those books that I urge everyone to read. It is beautiful, and the surrealistic elements are like so tangible and real. The next recommendation is main character who is navigating a eerie, creepy town, or it could be haunted, that type of vibe. My recommendation for this one, I don't know where it is White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. This one definitely has those like haunted, creepy, eerie vibes. Our main character is moving from the West Coast to this like Midwestern town, into this basically haunted house, and into this city where there are some creepy shit going on. And she's trying to navigate her way through it while also navigating her way through healing from a tough couple months or years. Definitely is creepy though. I for sure got spooked a couple times. Another one I want to recommend for this one is Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. I don't know where it is either, but this one, it literally, the title says it all. It feels like a fever dream. Basically, our main character is in a hospital bed and she is dying. And there's a little boy sitting next to her telling her these stories and these flashbacks, or helping her through these flashbacks. And it is all super weird, super strange, but there's this one part of the book that I remember, and they're like driving through the desolate downtown, and I remember it being super eerie, super creepy. So this book came into mind for this recommendation. I don't know how great for this specific recommendation it would be, but that just popped in my head. And if you are into like fever dream-esque type things, then this could be a book for you. The next one is a book with an unusual animal companion. And for this one, I'm going with Alatsue by Darcy Little Badger. The animal companion in this book is a dog, but it is the ghost of Alatsue's dog who has passed away. Alatsue lives in a slightly stranger America. She can raise the ghosts of dead animals, a skill passed down through her generations of her Lipan Apache family. Her beloved cousin has just been murdered in a town that wants no prying eyes, but she is going to do more than pry. The picture-perfect facade of Willoughby masks gruesome secrets, and she will rely on her wits, skills, and friends to tear off the mask and protect her family. I feel like this was one of the first books that I've read with an animal companion, and it was really, really cute, really well done. It brings up a lot of important topics, and the story itself was definitely super intriguing with the mystery of her murdered cousin. The next one was a book recommendation that involves deaf characters. I'm trying to remember which edition in particular has it, but in the Tea Dragon Society, I believe it's in the 3rd installment, definitely has deaf representation, and I remember seeing that on page and being super excited about it. But this is a adorable graphic novel. It is online as well. The hardcover books are kind of expensive, which is why I only have the first one, and I've gotten like the Kindle versions of the other ones, but they're absolutely stunning, and these little tea dragons are just the cutest things ever. The next one was one of my favorite ones as well, and it was, I don't know if I want to date her or be her. My first answer for this one was Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. Not exactly our main character, but our side character, who is Yuki Yamamoto. Yuki has this podcast that she does in the middle of the night in this book, where it's almost like a stream of consciousness, like, I don't know, really vibey thing where she's just talking. Just the ideas that I can get from this book and her character made me love this book even more than I already did. Another one, which is obvious, but it's Bryce from Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. I love Bryce, always will. The last one that I have for you guys is a book that makes you sound cool for having read it, but is also actually pretty tight. And I wouldn't ask Caleb his opinion on my answer for this one, because in my mind, I was thinking more of like literary type books with like merits and things that like sound really prestigious. Have you read it? And I guess the only ones that I could say would be like Jane Eyre or Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger. And I actually really, really liked both of them. I think Franny and Zooey has a special place in my heart now, having read it. And when I told Caleb that's what my answer was going to be, his response was, books that make you sound cool is really just any book you're passionate about, because passion is cool, not the thing. Okay. So take those two recommendations with it what you will, but also you can see any of my other videos for me ranting and raving about some of my favorite books, because I think I've taken up enough of your time. But this video was a lot of fun to film. Thank you for participating. If you did send in some of these questions for me to recommend. If you are still watching, then leave the little like detective guy emoji down below in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. I always appreciate your support. And of course, be kind to one another and happy reading. Bye.